Welcome to our Beer U module on historic beer cities. In this module, we'll look at some of the major brewing cities and talk about the local factors that influence their beers, as well as the way those beers have influenced the rest of the beer world. Beer is a product of local geography, history, and culture, and this module will explore some of the highlights of beer from this perspective. In the wine world, there's a concept called terroir. Terroir is a French phrase that means a sense of place and refers to the geography, climate, and other factors that shape the nature of agricultural products. The concept of terroir is important in understanding beer. Many local factors influence the flavor, production, and acceptance of every beer style. For example, the local water greatly influences flavors and which styles can be brewed successfully. Water, in turn, is greatly influenced by the local soil and the minerals it contains. The character of the water being brewed with can influence a brewer's choice of ingredients, while the local availability of ingredients has a major impact on what is brewed. Further, the local culture and economics can surely influence what kind of beer is brewed and how it is brewed. Today, modern science, transportation, and storage methods have largely offset local conditions as a factor, but the modern beer world is still a product of millennia of local conditions, or terroir. In 1840, Anton Dreher brewed a beer that is widely regarded as the first true lager. Dreher was able to successfully isolate a yeast strain that was conducive to the lager style of brewing, requiring cool fermentation temperatures and prolonged storage at cold temperatures. Vienna's location and climate were key factors in allowing Dreher to produce his lager beer. The Danube River provided Dreher with access to a clean water source. Additionally, Vienna's cool winters and springs allowed Dreher to store his beer at cold temperatures. In fact, Vienna beer was first called Märzen or March beer because it was commonly brewed in March when temperatures were low and supplies of ice were still available. Dreher was able to store his beer in rock cellars where it was able to stay cool during weeks of fermentation. Vienna lagers are not easy to find in Vienna these days, but some Austrian brewers eventually emigrated to Mexico, where they made the Vienna lager very popular. Variations of it are still brewed there today. Joseph Groll, a Bavarian brewer, was working at the Pilsen brewery in 1842 when he was able to create the world's first golden lager, the Pilsner style of beer. Pilsner beer resulted from a combination of factors that were local to the Pilsen area. First, Pilsen's extremely soft water was able to showcase the rounded hop flavor that became characteristic of the Pilsner style. Second, Saaz hops, perfect for the Pilsner beer, were grown not far away from Pilsen in nearby Žatec. And Groll was already familiar with the Bavarian lagering method that would mature his beer perfectly. Groll's Pilsner beer was a sensation in the brewing world and put Pilsen on the map. Today, Pilsen is still the home of the Plzeňský Prazdroj brewery that brewed the first Pilsner beer, where that beer, Pilsner Urquell, is still brewed. The porter beer style was first brewed in London around 1722, followed closely by the stout style, and IPAs were brewed in London in the early part of the 19th century. London became a brewing center for several reasons. First, London was in the midst of leading the Industrial Revolution. This provided London with a massive population that was thirsty for beer. Brewers, armed with modern brewing techniques, courtesy of increasing technical skills and tools, were eager to satisfy that demand. Additionally, London had become a transport hub, shipping to countries across the globe and throughout the British Empire, making it attractive and possible for brewers to create beers for distant markets, in addition to the large population at home. Names of other countries sometimes appear in English beer styles. The Russian Imperial Stout was first brewed in England for export to Russia, and the India Pale Ale was brewed first in London for export to India. Burton-upon-Trent, or more simply Burton, has been a major brewing center for centuries. Burton's big advantage in the early brewing world was its local water, which is very rich in gypsum or calcium sulfate. The high salt content in the local water highlights hop flavors and bitterness, making it perfect brewing water for English pale ales, which are also known as bitters. Unfortunately, Burton is located inland and was not always easy to reach. This made shipping beer to other cities difficult until improvements in transportation, such as the train, came along, allowing brewers in Burton to ship their beer to markets nationwide and causing a huge boost to the Burton brewing trade. While transportation improvements helped spur interest in Burton beers, brewers in other cities eventually responded as competitors to Burton once it was realized that the famous Burton water could be recreated elsewhere by simply adding gypsum to whatever water was available. Bock beer was first brewed as an ale in the 14th century in Einbeck, Germany. In those days, Einbeck was the leading brewing city in the Hanseatic League, a medieval trade union that shipped goods to other nations from northern German port cities. Bock beer from Einbeck became famous and was consumed by such historical figures as Martin Luther. In 1612, an Einbecker master brewer was lured to Munich in order to brew the famous Einbeck beer there. The name Einbeck changed to the Bavarian accent and was called Einbach, and later Bock beer. One could say that the city of Einbeck gave Bock beer its name. Coincidentally, the Bavarian phrase for Bock beer, Einbach, is the same as the Bavarian phrase for billy goat, which led to the adoption of the goat as a symbol for Bock beer. Munich, the capital of Bavaria in southern Germany, has been a brewing city for many centuries. Munich is well known for the largest beer-oriented celebration in the world, Oktoberfest. Held in Munich each fall for 200 years, Oktoberfest showcases the best brewers and beers of Munich. A specific beer style, the popular Märzen or Oktoberfest style, was even created for the Oktoberfest celebration, which was first held in 1810. Munich as a brewing city has also been at the center of many other beer-style creations. The Doppelbock, the Weizen or German wheat beer, the Munich Dunkel Dark Lager, and the Munich Helles Pale Lager were all born in Munich. Kolsch beers are from Cologne, which is called Köln in German. Kolsch is the local dialect of German that is spoken by Cologne residents, and many elements of the local culture, including food, are referred to as Kolsch. The designation Kolsch is protected by an agreement amongst local Kolsch brewers known as the Kolsch Convention. It specifies that only brewers in the Cologne Brewery Association can call their beer Kolsch. Kolsch beers are a direct rival to the Alt beers of the nearby city of Dusseldorf. Both are brewed in the old style with warm fermenting yeast, though Kolsch beers are lighter in color and body, as they are brewed to compete with mass-produced lagers. Kolsch and Alt beer are excellent examples of cities taking great pride in their local identities on a citywide scale. They are throwbacks of a sort to a time when each city produced its own distinct products and cuisine. Dusseldorf, about 40 kilometers from Cologne, is known for its own local beer specialty, the Alt beer. Like Kolsch, it is also brewed in the old or Alt style, and the name Alt beer is a reference to that. Lagers in Germany are considered the new style of brewing. Alt beer in Dusseldorf is a direct rival of the Kolsch style from Cologne, although Alt beers make use of darker malt to create a beer which is darker and richer in malt than the Kolsch. Alt beer is only recently recognized as a distinct beer style, but it has been brewed for many centuries. Prior to the popularization of the lager style, which largely originated in Bavaria to the south, Alt beer was known simply as beer to Dusseldorf residents. In fact, Dusseldorf is an extremely old city in many ways. The city of Neanderthal, which gives its name to Neanderthal man, is a Dusseldorf suburb. It was in response to the invasion of foreign beer, the Pilsner in particular, that a handful of Dortmund breweries banded together to form the Dortmund Union to create a pale lager designed to appeal to Pilsner drinkers. Dortmund Union succeeded in creating a popular beer that was both malty and hoppy, though softer on hops than its Pilsner counterpart. With their new beer, Dortmund became one of the largest brewing cities in the world by the early 20th century. The Dortmund water had similar gypsum content to Burton, but also contained a high amount of carbonates, or chalk, making it difficult for brewers to add too many hops to without making the hop flavors too sharp. Dortmund Union brewed a particular version of their new beer for export to other countries. They did this by brewing their beer to a higher alcohol level, making the beer more robust and resilient. The resulting beer was called the Dortmunder Export. Berlin area residents are fond of a beer style that is rarely seen outside of Berlin. It is a cloudy, sour wheat beer known as Berliner Weiss. In the 19th century, it was the most popular alcoholic drink in Berlin. In fact, Napoleon's troops consumed it and called it the Champagne of the North. Berliners often drink Berliner Weiss through a straw and flavor it with sweet raspberry or herb syrups. This helps to offset the naturally sour nature of the beer itself. The industrial city of Bamberg, Germany, is well known for its distinctive smoked beers known as Rauch beers. Smoked beer is created by using smoked malt in the brewing process. Prior to the 18th century, most beers had a smoky character as malt was traditionally dried over an open flame. As modern kiln malting came into fashion, smoke was kept away from the malt and beer lost the smoky character it had always had. The Rauch beers of Bamberg are not an innovation, they are a throwback to beer from centuries ago. In fact, Rauch beer is a celebration of the past smoky character of beer. The traditional Bamberg Rauch beer is a smoked Marzen-style beer, but other styles are often made today with smoked malts. Belgian brewers in and around Brussels have traditionally brewed sour beers called lambics for decades. Lambics are fermented with wild yeast that are naturally occurring in the Seine River Valley where Brussels is located. Due to the unique nature of the natural yeast around Brussels, the proper conditions are difficult or impossible to replicate elsewhere, making lambic production very rare away from this area. Lambic beer is blended with other lambics or other ingredients to produce gueuze, fruit lambics, faro, and other beers. Over 80 different microorganisms have been identified as being contributors to lambic fermentation. Prime among them is Brettanomyces bruxellensis, named for the Brussels region. The term lambic likely comes from the name of a city near Brussels called Lembeek. Legend tells that lambic production originated there many years ago. American West Coast brewers created a particular style of beer in the 19th century in response largely to the Western Gold Rush. That beer is called steam beer or California Common. California Common beer was made in response to the influx of thirsty miners during the Gold Rush days, and its production method took advantage of the cool San Francisco Bay Area evenings by fermenting the beer in open vessels. This was critical as refrigeration was not available to brewers at the time. The cool night air created steam from the warm beer vessels, hence the name Steam. Today, Anchor Brewing owns the copyright to the name Steam, so other beers in this style are usually referred to as California Common beers. Congratulations! You've finished the module. Hopefully you have a few minutes to take the optional quiz that is coming up. Like I said, it's optional, but if you are taking a Beer U curriculum and need to get credit for this module, you'll have to take the quiz and get at least 70% of the answers correct in order to show this module is complete. Good luck! Which phrase below best captures the meaning of the French word terroir? Hint: this module was all about places. Which country or countries have been influential in the evolution of lager beers? Hint: some of the cities we talked about in this module were Munich, Vienna, and Pilsen. The only American city to appear in this presentation was Portland, Oregon. Hint: the American city talked about in this module was on the West Coast. One of the beer styles talked about in this module is fermented by naturally occurring airborne yeast. That style is... Hint: the style in question is primarily brewed in the Brussels, Belgium region. The country with the most cities mentioned in this presentation was... Hint: this European country is home to 7 cities out of the total 13 cities in this module. Match a city on the left with a corresponding beer style on the right. Hint: this question slide is worth half the points for this quiz, so you cannot pass the quiz unless you get this slide entirely correct. So take your time on this question and come back to it more than once if you need to.